Hi guys, Maurice here, and I want to tell you about this amazing event, the Slow Baja Vintage Expedition, October 11th through the 18th, Ensenada to Ensenada. You know my pal Michael Emery of the Slow Baja podcast? He's been on the show before. Michael does such a great job at Slow Baja. I was on the trip last fall, and it was epic. That word is used a lot now, but I guarantee it fits here. It's non-competitive, leisurely travel through an unforgettable landscape, and you'll be in the company of some of the best people you'll ever meet. You know, if you've got an old Bronco or a Myers-Manx or Toyota FJ, if it's got four-wheel drive and it's 30 years old or looks 30 years old or it's just flat out cool, you should be doing the Slow Baja Vintage Expedition. I know some of you guys have an old 4x4 sitting next to that 911 in your garage. You've got to join us. And this year is a special tribute. It's the 50th anniversary celebration of Sal Fish's first Baja 1000. Sal is a Baja legend. We're going to drive the best legs of his original route. Sal is going to be on the trip pouring Fortaleza tequila for everyone. We've got Kurt LeDuc, Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Famer, trophy truck driver, and Kurt's coming along as the mechanic. So that opens up the trip to you Jeep guys, you Scout guys, even us Land Rover guys. Michael and his team take care of all the details. It's all-inclusive, 3 meals a day. In fact, I guarantee you'll eat better in Baja than you would at home. Primo camping along the way, and a hotel for the last night where you wash away that trail dust, but the memories are going to stay with you forever. So don't miss it. October 11th through the 18th, Ensenada to Ensenada. Go to slowbaja.com/adventures. There's a link in the show notes, but space is limited. So go to slowbaja.com/adventures today and join us on the Slow Baja Vintage Expedition. Hi, everybody. This is Horsepower Heritage. I'm Maurice Merrick. Well, I've officially recovered from Monterey Car Week, and once again, it was a terrific trip with so much to see and do. And of course, it is a working week for me because I was booked up with interviews and media coverage of various events, and I'll be sharing all of that with you both here on the podcast and on the YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe over there if you haven't already. And that also means I've got hours and hours of editing ahead of me, just tons of video, as well as some audio interviews. But today's podcast episode was job number one, because my guests are Ben Bertucci and So Naito. So Naito is a third-generation proprietor of a somewhat mythical automotive enterprise. Tucked into a narrow street in Tokyo is a repair shop known as Naito Engineering, which was established by So's grandfather, Shinichi, in 1952. So's father, Masao, began collecting sports and racing cars in the early 1970s, cars which at the time were often considered past their prime and not particularly desirable. But Masao has collected what he loves, as you'll hear. Ben Bertucci is an American filmmaker who for the last 7 years has been documenting the life of the shop and the men who work there. On any given day, you might find some of the world's most coveted sports cars up on the lift or torn apart in the garage. The result of Ben's odyssey is called One of One, reflecting the unique nature of this Japanese family and their story. And the film premieres on Prime Video and Apple TV Plus on September 1st. Now, I've been following Ben's work on Instagram, and maybe you have too. By the way, if you haven't, it is absolutely incredible. It will whet your appetite for all this stuff. And I'll put links in the show notes so you can check out his website and his Instagram as well as So's. But anyway, I had to have him on the show to talk about the film. It's long anticipated. It's like a car lover's dream. I mean, Shelby Cobras, vintage Porsches and Ferraris, and more. This is the first podcast that Ben and So have done to promote the film. So show your love and be sure to catch One of One on streaming. Again, the premiere is September 1st on Prime Video and Apple TV Plus. And for the video version of my interview with them, go to Horsepower Heritage on YouTube, and you'll see the cars and the shop. And my thanks to Ben for providing clips of the film to show everyone what we're talking about. And without further ado, here's my conversation with Ben Bertucci and So Naito. Enjoy. So Ben, this has been a labor of love, I know, and not without some heartache and frustration and uncertainty along the way. How did it all begin?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having us on, Maurice. We're glad to be here. It's like I said, it's our first podcast, so it's the inaugural sort of event for us. So thank you. Really, I found out about the business before I went to Japan. I was planning a trip to Tokyo to meet some people, some garages, do some filming there. And Naito was just one of about 20 people that I was going to meet. So I found them. I had a fixer who I had never met in person, but I met online. And he was in Tokyo, an Australian guy named Mark Scorgi. And he was a photographer and just an all-around kind of smart guy about Japan and culture and car culture in Japan. And he was kind of my boots on the ground guy, where I would go through these sort of lists of different sort of ideas and contacts and things that I found, and I would bounce them off of him or say, what do you think about these guys, or what do you think about those guys? And yeah, so I emailed the business because at that time, I don't know if I even had an Instagram account. I maybe had one that was kind of like a sort of an alias name for photography and stuff that I was doing, but it was very kind of early stages for me in my life as a filmmaker and director. And so I think I just sent them an email and said, I'm coming over. I'd love to meet. And and So wrote back, and I think we spoke actually on the phone once before I went over. And so that was first. It really was the sort of internet sort of sleuthing discovery about the business, and then I went over and met them.
So I'm really glad that you're here with us too. Your grandfather started the shop. That was right after World War II. Tell us about why he got into this in the first place.
Because as you knew, he used to be engineer of battle airplane ship named the Nakajima Hikoki. But after World War II, he lost his job, and he had to find something like engineer's work. And so luckily, he had a job from a U.S. military base, and then that's the point he started something like a just service garage.
And it was a lucky thing in a way, because there were a lot of American servicemen in Japan, and they were importing these little sports cars, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, at that time, nobody can fix foreign car except my grandpa. So that's the reason why he started as a car restorer, car repairer.
You're the third generation to take on the shop.
Yeah, it's it's funny. My grandfather is like very old school guy. He was a very quiet person, but he at the beginning, when I was young, he said to me, if you once you decided something you want, do it until the end, even if it's not car business. And I used to be a ski alpine racer.
Oh, wow.
When I was young. And so after I graduated high school, I flew to France and doing racing activity for 5 years. But he never said to me, hey, so back home and get your job, work with us. So he never said that. And so thankfully. So after that, after 5 years I spent there, I said myself, oh, okay, it's time to get back home and work my family business.
Did you feel obligated to do that, or was it something that you really wanted to do?
Yeah, luckily my family never forced me to take over the job because they knew. I had a feeling now that they knew I would get involved the family business.
So your father took over the shop from your grandfather. Your father is Masao.
Yes.
And then you also have a brother.
Yeah, I have a elder brother, Kei.
Kei, right.
He's actually the CEO of the Naito Engineering.
Okay.
And I'm a director.
Good.
Yeah.
Your father went racing in England when he was young. He also left home, left the business for a while.
Yeah, he first he flew to US and do some of car business here, something like buying and selling the car here. He did this way in couple of years. He feels it's now I have to go to Europe because it's the main, how to say, the motorsports mainstream is always in Europe. That's the reason why he thought I have to get involved in the race and then get some great connections and also an education exactly
that he couldn't get in Japan.
Right. At that time, not many Japanese people can fly up to Europe.
So what did your family think when Ben first contacted you about doing a film?
Yeah, he knew nothing about car.
Right.
So yeah, it's funny thing that at first time he stopped by my showroom. And he saw few cars. He never even know about Porsche or Ferrari because we had. At that time, we had some few racing cars, so it looks very unique.
But Ben, you didn't even know what you were looking at, really.
No, I mean, I knew that I mean, you can tell when you see certain cars, you're like, okay, that car is
special.
Yeah, but I had been shooting cars for probably 6 or 8 months, when I first met them. So, but I mean, I just what attracted me to them beyond the cars and beyond the other people that I had met in Japan or in the car world was that there was just this dynamic within this family that was so appealing and so interesting. And his father was just a really, really unique character,
Give me some examples.
Like I say, if he is the car nerd guy, we won't let him in our garage or our showroom because it's like there's so many the nerdy photographer filmmaker there. But he knew nothing about cars, and he was really talented as a filmmaker and the photography at that time.
So that was appealing to you.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they could spot it, I mean, that's one of the things that's sort of unique about Masao, So's father, is that his ability to see is just uncanny. I mean, it's like he sees it in the cars, he sees it in people. He can look at a car or look at a person and just, he can just read you. And he knows things about cars that just, his friends or his clients or even his sons will sometimes sit in his showroom and listen to him talk for hours, and he can just talk about, the body of a car or the engine of a car and just talk to them about it for hours. And they just sit there and listen to him and learn things about how he sees cars and people. And so, one of the things that made my work with the Naitos so easy was because, he really saw, I think, in me this chance to kind of build something together where it was like he had access to his family's cars, his father's cars, and I had cameras and a desire to make, beautiful images and do things. And I wasn't this guy that was like, hey, I could sell this movie to this person and we could do car stuff. It was like, no, I just want to hang out with your family and learn about your family and do some cool stuff.
Well, let's talk about the cars, because not only do you have customer cars that you service, but you're also maintaining a family collection.
Mostly maintain our collection because we have, the small number of customers. That because of, to maintain high quality restoration, we only need, the few, good customers.
Right. You don't have to do a volume business.
No.
You just have to have a few loyal customers with very special cars that, of course, have special needs.
That's right. Yeah. And luckily, we and our customer are on same page, so they 100% trust what we are doing.
Tell us about some of the cars in your family collection.
Yeah, like we talked about, back in the 1970s, my dad went to UK for doing, his racing activity, and that time he connected, very nice people. I mean, car guy like a David Piper and what else? Derek Warwick, Tom Walkinshaw, guys like them, and they recommended him to buy some important cars. It's like racing cars, and then he says, I have to buy what I like, even if it not sell, and I can drive in my country.
Right. So some of the cars in the collection, a Ferrari 250 Le Mans, 1964.
Yeah.
Right. They all were 64.
Yeah.
A Porsche
911R.
911R. Yeah, indeed.
It's not only the vintage car, but also, modern sports car like Ferrari Enzo, F40 now.
A 993
RSR.
Yeah.
The one I love is the Maurice Mini Cooper S Mark 1.
Right.
Which we bought in 1978. So it's pretty long ownership.
I love early cars. First or second year of a model, they're always more pure in a way.
Right.
And then later on you get some mechanical improvements, maybe a fifth gear.
Yep.
They go from 4-speed to 5-speed, or larger displacement engines, little changes. Maybe you go from drum brakes to disc brakes. But in terms of the design of a car, most of the time, the best year of a given model is like first or second year, I think.
Yeah.
You agree?
100% agree.
Yeah. Your dad probably feels that way too.
Yeah.
He's got a very good eye.
I think so.
Do you think he's passed that on to you?
Yeah, I think now he leave it to me. That's what I feel. Especially in past few years.
Has it been hard for him to let go a little bit?
I think so.
Masao was and still is a very, as I said before, very singular kind of a character. And he was prepared to run the business very, very early on. And he describes it in one of my interviews with him this way. He says, there was a time when, I think the way he says it is that the names on the doors switched, where I went from, just employee to president. But honestly, I had been it was the same job. I had always been running the business. So I think my guess is that probably as soon as the sort of business of importing cars became very important and became the sort of real breadwinner for the company, Masao took over,
Right.
And I think on paper, probably Shinichi, the grandfather, was still the CEO, but the decisions were made by Masao. Masao's sort of ethos about car purchasing was always as so just described, where he never thought to himself, oh, I'm going to make tons of money on this car, or, these cars are going to be great. I mean, he was told multiple times, don't buy these cars because these cars won't sell in Japan. They're manual transmission or and he just said, listen, I love these cars. I love to drive this car. This is the car I'm going to buy. And he always just stuck to his guns on that. And he would sell the cars, and then people would be like, "Oh, maybe he was right. Maybe we should import those cars here."
So it sounds like it was about not just his personal interest, but also an intuition about what was innately cool about those cars.
He could see.
Yeah,
he just had a very, very. I mean, his vision was just so clear. This is cool. This is what I like. This is what I'm going to buy.
Right.
And it just was so clear. And it looks like, to me, it looks like it was almost sort of a preternatural kind of a thing where he just kind of like, I mean, we have all these boxes of photos, and he was surrounded by cars like in the 70s and 80s, people were selling cars and things were cheap and there was just stuff everywhere to buy, and he just knew.
Yeah, his habit was always like, so don't follow trend. Buy what you like, what you love.
It's good advice.
I think so.
It's a good way to go.
Yeah, it works well to me.
So Ben, once the Naito family agreed to have you come in and make this documentary, what was your approach from a filmmaker's point of view?
Film everything. It was very simple. I mean, it was just as much time as I could get with the family, as much footage as I could get with them, and it was very sort of closed off at first, where it was just like I was given little pieces. So I started with interviewing. I interviewed his father. I interviewed I interviewed Kei, and I just sort of was there as much as I could and tried to get as much film as I could, in on every trip, So a lot of it was me, talking with So about ideas and saying, hey, could we get your dad to do this thing? Or could we get your dad to do this interview? Or could I interview the shop foreman? Or could I interview Shigeru, the brother of Masao? And it was just So and I kind of like, that's why sometimes we say he's the producer, because, he really did, produce all of those shoots. And a lot of times, when you see that LM driving down the street, that's So is driving my rental car, and that's us driving from the workshop to the showroom. I mean, it's not like we were like, close down the street and no, I mean, we were just like, we got to take the car back to the showroom. Let's shoot it while we're doing that.
Absolutely.
Now that the movie is done and I'm happy with it, and it looks the way that it does, and it's got the feel of it. I'm a little bit more inclined to tell people how green I was when I first met them, because at first it was like, it was a little embarrassing because I would, I really knew very, very little about cars, but also about shooting cars, And so I showed up to Tokyo sometimes with this, with really kind of ragtag kind of filming gear. And it was just like, I just got to get this. I got to get this, I got to get this done. I got to get these guys on camera. This is such an opportunity. And I was just like renting gear on credit cards and just, trying to make it work, because I just felt there's something that I felt about their story and about my relationship with So, and just about what the potential of it could be, And so, it really was like, I found whatever I could find, borrowed gear from friends, or like, and learned how to do the sound myself, how to color stuff myself, how to light stuff myself, and just made it work,
Was there ever a worry that they would see that you're kind of learning as you go and maybe...
Well, no, because they had never filmed really with anybody.
Okay, so they didn't know what they were looking at.
I had that working for me, It was like, good. If they were like, obviously if it was like, some very famous race car driver, or, if it was some famous family that had, that was media savvy, of course, they would see me show up, with my backpack and be like, what is this?
Yeah, as I said, he is not, car guy, so his, way of shooting was really new to us. So that's why, he has got, my dad said, oh, Ben has got great taste. So let's keep shooting our cars. That's,
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the big reasons.
Ben, I think you've got a really signature style, I have to tell you. And the film unfolds in a really deliberate way. And by that, I mean, you take your time. You let the story develop. I've never felt like you were pushing it in any particular direction, if you know what I mean. And we see a lot of fast editing and flash in a lot of small independent films today. And this just unfolded. So I just wanted to tell you.
That's very nice. I appreciate that, Maurice. I mean, I really developed that style and that sort of look, I think, in working with them, because I really wanted to have the film kind of be presented in the way that the family and their work was presented to me, because a lot of times it was like, all right, meet us at the showroom, at 7 a.m., 7:30, we'll drive to the workshop and we'll start working. And it was never like, Ben, don't put your camera there, or don't film this, or, can you move over? It was like, they literally just treated me like I was part of the company and ignored me most of the time. And so I just sort of watched as the sort of work and the story just kind of unfolded in front of my eyes. And so, yeah, so I appreciate your compliment. And also I just, it was a bit of a challenge because, to make a feature length film where nothing really happens, there's really not like any, sort of big action, there's no like, wild fight. I don't want to spoil it, but there's no like wild fights, or car crashes or nothing blows up or, and so it's just, I had to just kind of like get people invested in this family and this story and just the work, because to me that was just so fascinating. It was like, there was never music. There was never a rush, there was never like, yelling and talking. It was just kind of like, we're here, we're working, it was like, sometimes on those car shows, you get that sort of forced schedule, where they're like, is So going to be able to finish the carburetor rebuild by 4:00, and then cut to commercial. And you know what I mean? It's like, there's no real deadline. They're just kind of like forcing this sort of cliffhanger on you so that you keep watching after the commercial. So
that's what I'm talking about, Ben, in terms of you didn't go for any of that gimmicky stuff. It's just the life of the shop and the men who work there.
Right.
And their dynamic together. You must have gotten to know each one of them just through your lens and just through observing.
Yeah, well, that's a great question because, the business, obviously, there's a dynamic and there's a hierarchy. It's very particular as well in Japanese culture, which I sort of learned, Masao in particular. You realize that, the way he talks, the way his mannerisms are, and the way that he sort of deliberates tasks to each different person is completely different,
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes, with his sons, there's different ways that he talks to each son, and then he's got his brother who was his employee, and then the shop foreman who's also his employee, but who he sort of looks up to in a bit, who has actually been working at Naito longer than Masao, so the dynamic is so fascinating to me. And that was like, you see it a lot and some people will catch it, but some people, it'll just look like sort of normal everyday life in the shop, but there are things that happen in the camera, that are like, you see shots of Masao kind of watching his children, or watching his children differently, or looking at one of his sons with one look and the other son with another look. And so, like for instance, there's a section of the film where Masao is off camera, but he's speaking to his younger brother, Shigeru, and he says something to him that's to the effect of like, "Hey, Shigeru, I'm in a good mood. Why don't you go get me some coffee so we can celebrate?" Which is really kind of like a diminutive kind of way to speak to somebody who's your employee, who's on camera. But then, Shigeru can do nothing but kind of laugh, like, well, he's like, and he has to take it in a way that's like jovial and excited, and it's just funny. He's just messing around, but really what he's doing is, he's establishing the order.
Right.
And Masao is doing that all the time. And it's people that know more about Japanese culture and family life can sort of wax poetic on it better than me. But I've watched this family for many, many years, and it's so fascinating. This is how it works.
I love traveling in Europe, and maybe you do too. But if you'd like the freedom of extended European living or even working or studying in Europe, there's a unique opportunity for classic and collector car enthusiasts to enjoy an appreciating asset and at the same time earn EU citizenship. Portugal Panorama offers a way for qualified individuals to acquire their preferred vehicles while simultaneously securing Portuguese residency through the Golden Visa program. This is a unique two-in-one opportunity aligning passion, investment, and legacy. Portugal is a nation on the move, with a fantastic climate, a vibrant economy, and high native fluency in English. Experience the historic charm of Porto, the cosmopolitan energy of Lisbon, and the relaxed coastal atmosphere of the Algarve. Ranked as one of the world's best places to retire, the business and leisure opportunities in Portugal are unparalleled. Portugal Panorama's Aquila Wheels Fund allows collectors to add to their garage while enhancing their family's optionality tenfold. Their concierge service handles the acquisition and storage of your chosen collector car, while your investment helps you earn Portuguese citizenship and an EU passport, giving you freedom of travel throughout 29 member nations. Benefits extend to immediate family members as well. Visit PortugalPanorama.com to learn more. Remember, investment involves risk, and past performance is not indicative of future results. But you can learn more at PortugalPanorama.com. Most shops that work on cars of this caliber, at least in the United States and Europe, are kind of surgically clean. They have state-of-the-art equipment. Everything is just perfectly neat. And that's not Naito. It's a very unique place for those reasons alone.
Yeah, so many people say your workshop is awesome. It's a good vibe and stuff like that. But to us, it's very natural. It's simply we haven't got any time to maintain our workshop. So
the shop is cramped.
Mm-hmm.
It's dimly lit, I think. There's clutter.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are sitting on like plastic crates.
Yeah, that's right.
Working on parts.
Right.
It all seems to work for you, but it's not how most shops that work on these cars would operate.
No.
But it's your way.
That's the way, my dad did. My grandpa did. So to me, for restoration business, we have to pass on the tradition and we protect the tradition. So I want to keep, doing this business as much as, we can in this way. That's it.
That was probably a function of your grandfather just not having a lot of money to invest in the shop and having to make ends meet early on, right? And being thrifty. Because post-war Japan was a difficult place to make a living.
Yeah, he wasn't that good to make money. So this is the big reason. My dad started import the car from the US at the beginning of Naito Engineering. So he helped as a salesman to my grandpa, and my grandpa focused on fixing the cars, restore the car. So that's that they are working very well.
That's at least the story that Masao tells.
Yeah.
I mean, Masao tells this story, I mean, he has such deep respect and reverence for his father, as a mechanic.
Yeah.
And just as a man, I mean, Shinichi was totally self-taught, and got this job with Nakajima Aircraft, which actually after the war was closed and became Subaru. And so, he got this job at this very, very high technical, very high skilled, engineering shop, having never gone to school, which was just unheard of in Japan. And so, Masao had this reverence for his father that was like almost godly, but he always said, my father just had no concerns about money. He just wanted to work on engines.
Right.
That's all he wanted to do. And so Masao really was like, feeling the sort of opportunity and the sort of, the excitement of the 70s, just took it upon himself to just, to just go out there and do it, and the fact that Shinichi said to his son, like, listen, if you need to sell the house to buy that car, sell the house, we can find an apartment and we'll make it work, and so it was just this kind of like mutual respect and this mutual kind of like agreement that was like, let's get it done,
Ben, you never met Shinichi, did you?
That's right. He passed in 2010.
Okay.
So 7 years before I met the Naitos.
And you started the project in 2018?
17, 18.
17, 18.
Yeah.
So a very long road.
That's right.
Do you think that was actually fortuitous that it took this long to make the film?
I mean, if you want to call it that, that'd be great. I mean, the truth is when I met them, I was very green, as I said before, but my sights were on short films and just, doing small projects that could kind of like help me, build my sort of career as a filmmaker and as a storyteller. And in my estimation, it's probably the time that I needed to sort of learn how to tell that big of a story. I mean, there's no way that I could have told this story in 2018.
Right.
As a filmmaker, I didn't have the skills to do it. And I don't know. I feel like I hadn't sacrificed enough at that time. I really had to just kind of put everything I had into this movie and, just push it as far as it could go,
Yeah, that's why I ask, because let's say you had a much bigger budget and you had a small team that you basically were on the ground with you, ready to go, and you didn't have to struggle and you didn't have to like work out all these problems in terms of like your filmmaking experience. It might have been a completely different project if it had been relatively effortless and had taken maybe a year.
Right. Well, you're talking about the director's dilemma, which is filmmakers who have an eye and a talent. Their first few films are always thought of as being the best because they're struggling, they're putting everything they have into it, and then later in their careers, when the world is at their hands and they have all the money that they need, they kind of sit back in their cozy chair and tell other people what to do, and their movies aren't as good, So I mean, maybe yes, I just, for me, the other thing too was this sort of integrity that goes into creating something on your own, and doing it yourself, allowing it to be to live and die sort of on your shoulders, rather than sort of saying, Warner Brothers gave me, $10 million to do this thing. And if it doesn't work out, it's like, but my relationship with So and with the family was so important to me as a filmmaker, as a storyteller, but also just as a person, that it was like, I really was willing to sort of sacrifice and to put my heart and soul into this film because I thought they deserved it and I deserved it. And the other thing too is that, the people that have been following our work, they deserved it,
Yeah.
The film.
It's a great family story.
Yeah.
The cars become characters in the film. How did you approach that part of it? Because there's a lot of rolling shots, different locations around Tokyo that you took the cars.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the car shoots were just So and I talking about, man, it would be so cool to see this car at this location. We should do it. Okay, let me ask my dad. Okay, we can do it. And then that was it. And so, in the editing, everything feels a bit more deliberate, and it is in the editing of it, but in the shooting of it, it was really just like, man, this 993 RSR would look so good on the highway at sunrise. Let's just shoot it. And so we would shoot it, and then we would put clips or photos on Instagram. And that's really how because we were sort of promoting the film before we even knew we were going to make this film.
There's an electricity to the rolling shots and then the night shots. And there's this kind of like atmospheric feel to it. I love it. And the cars come alive.
Yeah.
Distribution is always a challenge.
Yeah.
How did you approach that?
We're doing it ourselves. I made this film myself with the help of a few investors, and we plan to distribute the film and market the film ourselves, So a lot of that is So and I, going places and getting our picture taken with people or talking to people about stuff and just putting the word out.
At what point did you decide on a title?
Yeah, I was kind of back and forth about the title, and I was like, it's got to be something, that talks about the generations of the family and this family dynamic. I actually was creating a list of the cars that the family owns, and a lot of the cars are quite rare, like this Lotus 11 Coventry Climax, which is like one of two, or their Porsche 907, which the short tail was like one of four, the 250 LM, which was one of 32. And I was just like, oh, well, that's great. I mean, this family is just one of one.
Well, guys, thanks for doing this. I hope everyone sees this film. It's fantastic. The film is One of One. The director is Ben Bertucci. It premieres September 1st on Prime and Apple TV+, and it's the story of Naito Engineering and the Naito family. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maurice.
That's all for this episode of Horsepower Heritage. Rate and review the podcast. Give me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. By the way, you can comment now on Spotify. I read all the comments. I really appreciate you guys doing that. And if you like what you've heard, go to buymeacoffee.com/HP Heritage and support the show with a donation. I'll see you back here in 2 weeks. So until then, I'm Maurice Merrick. Thanks for listening.